Many of New York City's public housing project buildings are old, and a good example of this is First Houses in Manhattan's East Village. City Limits has a story about the issue headlined, "Life in a Landmark, Pioneering Public Housing Site Shows Its Age." And City Limits Editor-in-Chief Jarrett Murphy joins me now to discuss the story. Hi, Jarrett.
Hi, Don.
Let's begin by talking about First Houses. This was actually New York City Housing Authority's first project, but as City Limits reports, it's gone from a shining example of a great place to live to one with severe maintenance problems. So what's going on at First Houses?
Well, Don, First Houses is not only the first public housing project in New York City, it was the first in the nation public housing started in New York. The building was created in the mid-1930s, preceded the New Deal, and so it's about 80 years old. It is a landmark building because of its architectural and historical significance. But the reporter that we sent in there, Shamira Muhammad, what she found is that for some residents there, living in a landmark has its pros and cons. The pros is it's a beautiful building on the exterior. The cons include the fact that it is 80 years old, and there are maintenance problems, leaks, plaster issues, paint issues, problems that are typical to large apartment buildings in New York and especially to public housing.
First Houses has 19 building code violations, some of them dating back to 1975. How big is the problem at First Houses, and also how big is the problem of maintenance throughout the projects?
Well, Don, it's a big problem because it's a big system, and it's a system that hasn't had the money it needs to keep up with maintenance. First Houses is one of several hundred public housing developments in the city. NYC Housing in New York includes 180,000 apartments, at least 400,000 residents, perhaps more like 500,000. So it's really a city unto itself. And it's a city that for the past 10 years has been cheated by the federal government in terms of how much money it's supposed to get from Washington for its operating expenses. This is what would pay for regular maintenance and regular repairs to keep aging buildings in some sense of working order. The Bush administration and even the Clinton administration gave NYCHA less than it asked for, less than it counted for under federal formulas. And it also starved the city of capital funds that pay for larger repairs and big projects.
The Housing Authority has a 5-year plan, though, and that's to preserve this public housing and address the maintenance needs. Is the plan in place, and is it working?
The plan is in place. The plan involves a lot of different steps, both physical repairs to buildings, changes in how buildings are operated, changing in the financing. The plan is operating. If you go to a public housing project in the city, you are likely to see people doing work. But obviously there's such a huge system to deal with and such a backlog from the years when the financing wasn't there that a lot of residents have complaints like those that our reporter Shamira Muhammad found at First Houses. The buildings are structurally sound, but there are problems with the elevators. The buildings are good looking on the outside. In fact, First Houses is actually a landmark. But on the inside, there are the typical problems of aging buildings, leaks, problems with lighting, problems with fixtures, things that will, over a number of years, impact on your quality of life. So the to-do list is very, very long. I think NYCHA's plan is an attempt to address it, but obviously there's a difference in scale between the solution that's being proposed and executed and the problem that awaits it.
Jarrett Murphy, and Jarrett is discussing this story, "Life in a Landmark, Pioneering Public Housing Site Shows Its Age," and you can read all about it in City Limits. Thanks, Jarrett.
Thank you, Don.